Hannah Rees is the founder and CEO of the Women's Global Leadership Initiative. In this workshop today, she'll look at the beliefs and inherent behaviors that interfere with building healthy relationships with other women.
Hello, hello. So I'm going to start with a slideshow, and I'm going to start with some cards. And halfway through, or maybe in 5 minutes, everything will go. I'll more than likely throw it away, and then we'll get down to real business. So I'm not, I don't really adapt very well to the formal process, but I'm going to give you information that's very relevant and very important this day and age. Okay, so I just want you to be ready. Everybody will have to participate. Otherwise, I'll call on you. This is a collaborative process. This is about opening your mind, opening your heart, right? And sharing with each other to build a perspective so that we can build community, that we can come together, and that we can have some real change, right? So that will take being a little vulnerable, right? So that's what I hope for you. And that's what I'm good at. So I'm going to help you make that happen. So Women's Global Leadership Initiative is an organization that was created in order to provide access. Access to those women that are in communities who know they have something to offer, but they don't have access. They don't have support. They don't have a mentor. They can't afford to go to a leadership event such as this. But they're hungry and they want to change something. They need the courage and they need the support. So the organization was created in order to provide that for women. So that's what we're all about. Today, we're delivering programs in the Bay Area and moving forward, and our original purpose was to create programs to share with partners. So partners are community service organizations that provide services for women, right? So for instance, the YWCA in Cleveland has 350 women, right? They are already doing well, they're surviving, and they're going into thriving, and now they want to invest in themselves. So the YWCA takes their programs, they educate the women they serve, they engage local stakeholders, women's professional associations, and then they also have an additional revenue source, all right? So those are our programs. So our goal is to educate 20,000 women by 2020 by providing partners with programs to educate and activate the women that want to invest in their future. So that's what we're about. Card 2. So the organization was developed in the Balkan area, and after working there, I found out what was true of women all over the world, that we're very close to the problems. We also have the solutions because we're very connected to our community and we're listening, right? Even if we're in business, even if we're in tech, we're listening to our grandparents, our mothers, our children, our father, and so on. In Croatia specifically, in the Balkan area, I saw that there were a lot of women in the communities that wanted to create change. And I saw all these women who were at the top. So they were academic, business, and government. And I was like, these women are from the village, but they forgot they're from the village, right? So how do we create community and responsibility among women? How do we activate the women at the top to recognize that at the end of the day, they're from the village and they need to go back because that's where their sisters are, their nieces are, their grandmothers are, right? So creating that, creating responsibility and community among women. I'm going to share a story with you that's very, very relevant and very close to my heart. I never thought I was going to do it. I did commercial acquisitions, and it came to a point in my life that someone asked me, well, let me tell you a story. So I am a girl from the hood, right? I grew up in Inglewood and Compton, right? I became an advocate as a way of surviving. I had a big mouth, right? And I was an advocate. And it really helped me survive, right? Moving forward, what ended up happening was I got into business, faked it till I made it. When I got to my 40s, I'm 53, proud to say it. When I got in my late 30s, I recognized that it was time to actually work with women. And I recognized that I had survived, but I never had really paid attention to my own personal development, right? So it's kind of like time to slow down. I had the opportunity to study this Balkan region, then I had the opportunity to go to Africa, and then I went to the Balkans, Croatia, Bosnia, saw the disparity in services and all that. Where was I going? I'm naive. I think I can change the world, and I know that I can, okay? I know that I can. So I go to Africa, learn about leadership development, see young women, how it's having an effect there. Go back to the Balkan area. They said, all you have to do is tell your story. So I'm telling my story, and nonprofits are like starting to call me, and they're like, oh yeah, we want this for our women. Yeah, we want this for our women. So I'm just telling the story. I'm terrified because I don't know how I'm going to even deliver on what I'm talking about, right? All I'm talking about is a dream and an impact. So I go into to this place in Rijeka, and it's a port town. They're supposed to be activists. These women say they want to educate the women that they're serving, who are mostly migrant women and younger women. I go there, and I'm telling them, this is what I saw in Africa. This is the impact it's made. This is what young women are being charged to do, and they're doing it. And they're talking about things that are really difficult, like female mutilation and circumcision and AIDS and all this. And they want to change it, and there's hope because your women can do this, right? So I'm talking to them. 3 minutes into the conversation, I see their eyes are going glossy over, and I'm like, oh no, they're not, right? And then I recognize that they've disconnected because I was being entertained because I was an American and they thought I had deep pockets, right? So they had engaged me because they said to me that they were interested in investing in the women that they were serving, right? So I left there and I started walking down a path. I'm always lost, but I like being lost, okay? I'm lost and I'm walking towards this little apartment, this little room that I'm renting in an apartment, and I run into 3 young women. They're in their 20s, 21, 22, 23, in that area. And they say to me, kako si, are you a tourist? I said, no, I'm not a tourist. I'm not a tourist. I said, samo radim. I'm here to work. They said, why? I was very, very angry at this point. And I said, this is what I'm doing. I'm here because organizations need to invest in women. The professional women need to invest in your future. You have no access. I'm going into shops. I see women who have the ability to have an impact in their community, yet nobody's providing them with the access. And they look at me like I'm crazy. Right? So I start walking again, and they ask me the question again. And then they ask me the question the 3rd time. And then, I'll never forget it. I realized that at that moment, it wasn't that they didn't understand what I was saying. It was their inability to see that anybody would invest in their future. Do you get it? And that was just that was unacceptable. The crazy thing here is the disconnect. The professional women, by saying that they weren't going to invest in the future of the women in their communities, were also saying at the same time that they weren't of value. So one was reconciling the other. You get it? So the messages were coming from the grandmothers, the aunts. The whole society didn't believe that it was worth investing in women. And that's very tragic, right? So that's where our philosophy came from, that it's about creating community and responsibility among women. And the way that we do that is by showing them and by allowing them to share their stories and their stories of struggles. So all the speakers and the trainers and so on that we've had are women who are really willing to share the strength of their story, where they've been, what they've overcome, right? And how this is relevant for the women they're serving. So that's who we are today. Did you understand the story and the significance of the story that I was saying? Because sometimes I think in Spanish and it comes out in English in a different way. Right? You gotta check me if you're gonna be my sister, right? Okay, so we're gonna, right. Okay, let's see where we are here. So we talked about, so in creating a community and providing our programs, I already talked about, it's about creating a community of women who are community and responsibility among women. And what are some of the things that get in our way of creating true community, right? It's this competitive mindset that we have, right? That's what we're going to address here today. And okay, so this isn't first. So when I hear of equity, and I hear of gender equity, and I hear of pay equity, and I hear of the inability to go into any type of organization, whether it's tech, education, law, and these types of things, the only thing I can say to you, sister, is that the answers lie in this room. So gender equity starts here, right? Pay equity starts here, right? So it's our responsibility, having had that experience, having known what it is, right? To experience what sexual harassment is, or the inability to go over the glass ceiling or breaking glass and all that. It really starts here, right? It really starts by providing access. It really starts by taking a risk on a young woman that you don't know and saying, oh, she might hurt my credibility or she might hurt my reputation. You gotta roll the dice because that sister may need that opportunity, right? So it's really taking those risks, right? And remembering that you are the representatives of the future. And if we don't make this change and we don't start actually initiating this and taking those risks, the girls that are coming behind us, we're going to face the same situation that we were facing 60 years ago. Right? So women's rights, sexual discrimination was an enormous, my father was a clinical psychologist and helped initiate the sexual discrimination cases in the 1970s. And I'm going to tell you, it's identical to what's going on today. There was a resurgence, right? It was in the media. People were there was also a resurgence of movie stars that were coming out. There had been sexual harassment. So what we're seeing now is another resurgence. It's another bubbling up, right? So what we've seen in the last couple of, hold on here. Right. I don't know my right from my left. So what we're seeing, this resurgence of women's rights, of talking about sexual harassment, talking about female mutilation and all these things. There was a conversation in the 60s and the 70s. We have a very unique opportunity now that we've really become a global community and that we have the internet, right? And that we have this time. But we really need to start working to actually start affecting some of this change. And it's not about taking a global platform. It's about, it's about doing something in your community, right? But really making it happen. So what we're finding is that women across the world, we're more similar than dissimilar. And a lot of people think it's tragic that we are united through pain, that we are united through struggle, that we are united by lots of what's happened to us, but really those things don't define us. They're part of our experience, but they do help us come together. Right? They do help us come together. I have a friend, Kelly, and she's never really had that many friends. She's a millionaire. She has a jet. She is like perfect. Nobody wants to touch her because they can't compare, right? Like, what do I have to offer her? What could we ever talk about? What somebody doesn't know about Kelly was that when Kelly was 9 or 10 years old, mother abandoned her and her brothers and sisters in a mansion without any food. And she had to cross the railroad tracks in Sacramento at 10 years old to buy food and keep that a secret for 6, 7, 8 months, being terrified without electricity. Right? So we never know what we're looking at. We can't have that prejudgment. So it is going on right now in the world. What do you think it is? Do you think that, what do you see this resurgence of women's rights equating to? Do you think women are fed up?
I was going to say fed up.
So they're fed up, they want change, right? They'll take to the streets. How about boys?
They want to be heard.
They want to be heard because they're tired. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? And I really hope, and I mean, I'm vested in this, is that this will really be a significant change moving forward, right? That what women will learn to do in their organizations is say, that's not acceptable, or no. You know, this is a tool. No. Right? I mean, it literally stops people in their tracks. You can have somebody coming at you as aggressor. You can go no, and they'll pause, right? Okay, so we're here because we want to build communities, transparent communities among women. We want to share our resources. We want to learn how to communicate with one another. We want to learn and address how to deal with that internal turmoil, as you would say, in our relationships with other women. Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about what holds us back. So you can imagine a lot of that is judgment, a lot of it is cultural conditioning and that type of thing. So we'll talk a little bit about cultural influences, behaviors and expectations that have been put forth in this culture as it is. We'll talk a little bit about the beliefs and inherent behaviors, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we see ourselves and other women and how we compare ourselves to one another. So does this slide look like something that we encounter? Right. So what I want to talk about is a delicate situation which women often don't want to address. So we talked about a lot of the behaviors and that we admire in women. We talked about women that we admire and their values and how those translate to community values and how we could use those in terms of building community and responsibility, and how important it is to have a frame of reference, and how important it is to reach back and bring those women to the forefront, and how important it is to serve as a role model for those women moving forward. But I think that you're really here because you want to address this competition that exists among women. So how are women and men different in terms of competition? Women, some of the cultural influences, of course, are the TV, right? The magazines, how we look at ourselves, how we compare ourselves. Men versus women, right? Men are very, are raised to be competitive and to be in sports. They depersonalize competition. So if you're in a competition with a man, or even if you're in a fight with a man, man to man, 10 minutes later, you can see them having beers and you're like, whoa, that didn't really happen. They were like killing each other, right? And they'll really be having beer. Women don't do that. We personalize it. We internalize it, right? And it's killing us for 3 and 4 days. And that's all right. That's just the way we are. But we have been culturally conditioned. How? A lot of what we see in corporate America and just all over is women, their inability to ask because they might look too rough. Their inability to get into an argument because they may come across as being bitches, right? And that type of thing. So as women, we're supposed to behave, right? We're not supposed to cuss. We're not supposed to compete, right? So we have all these shouldas and these couldas and all these societal expectations. And part of the movement that's happening now is about breaking away from societal conditioning. The shoulda, the coulda, the woulda, right? Like, you should be married. You should have children. Or when are you going to have a child? Or what are you doing with your life if you don't have a child? Oh, please, right? Right? So part of the movement is we don't want anybody else to define anymore what's right for us or what we should have or could have, right? But it's still very pervasive. Even though we're yelling in the streets and we're wanting our rights and we want to learn how to say no and we want to learn how to ask for what we want, right? And when we want it, how it looks like, and now, right? We want our women to grow up like this. We want our women to have confidence and resilience and ask for what they want, right? Let's teach them how to quantify it, right? So when they have the ask, they can have that impact. What is getting in the way is the same old story, right? The same old story that I was talking about, that the businesswomen of Rijeka, Croatia, they didn't think they had enough to give. They couldn't see that anybody would invest in them. That same message to the young women, that they didn't see anybody would invest in their future, right? We're living that story, right? In the way that we're culturally conditioned. And that very message that speaks about, don't come across being too brash and that type of thing. All that conditioning, what it does, it keeps all of this bottled up, right? So what's the word, sublimate? So we keep everything inside. Subjugate?
Suppress.
Huh?
Suppress.
Suppress, it's a better word. So all of that we're unable to communicate because of the cultural conditioning and because we don't want to be seen as masculine or we don't want to be seen as too rash or brash or whatever, all of that is suppressed. And that the way that comes out is not too good, right? So it's called indirect aggression, right? Have you heard of this? Indirect aggression? Let's go. Let's see if it's the other way. Oh, wait. I guess it was somewhere here. Okay. So what is indirect aggression? It's a set of behaviors that women use when they're unable to communicate or handle conflict or address the situation at hand because they're afraid, right, of how they might look. They're afraid to come across as being competitive, so they hold back and they don't represent what it is that they bring to the table. That's another dynamic, right? We don't want to seem like we're being boastful, right? So when we don't have this ability to speak our truth and we keep that suppressed, the way that we operate is through what's called indirect aggression, right? So these are all behaviors that we admire in women leaders, right? What are some of the behaviors that we don't admire in women leaders? Could you name some? Just one. Any woman leader that you've worked with. Or let's just say women. What are some of the behaviors in the workplace that women demonstrate that aren't so pretty?
Volatility?
Volatility?
Yeah,
so,
but that would be for men too, because I mean, if you don't
well,
like
no,
it,
but I mean, that's seen as being volatile, okay?
Backstabbing.
ooh,
Volatile.
Backstabbing. Uh-huh.
Lack of integrity. There's maybe another.
Lack of integrity. you
Another
can call
meme
it
for
somebody.
that, I don't know.
So, but lack of integrity, what does that mean to you? I can come up with all kinds of pictures.
You know, not being truthful about, you know, having some sort of ulterior motive, maybe. I don't know. I feel like passive aggressive.
That is passive aggressive. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Manipulative. Yeah, manipulative.
So, passive aggressive.
Self-promotional.
Self-promotional. I miss somebody here.
All the time.
Yeah, I guess it's
Yeah,
different.
it's
Right.
weird with anybody.
It's like
Scaffolding others.
Not supporting other women.
Right.
Can we say supporting women?
That's why I don't like
So we have volatile, backstabbing, lack of integrity, passive aggressive, self-promoting, and not supporting other women. It's funny that women never want to address this.
And they never really want to talk about it
Right.
unless it's in their inner circles. But it's necessary to start talking about it and acknowledging and recognizing that this is like keeping us apart, right? So I just wanted you to do that exercise very quickly so that you can see what it is that women use, right? You can see how it feels, right? And that you can make a decision to start turning away from that and taking the time to learn more of what is keeping you from building those relationships, right? And what is it that we need as women? I'll tell you what we need. We need to learn conflict resolution, right? We need to learn what we bring and be able to articulate that very clearly, right? That's what we need to do in order to build community.